The Terran Vanguard, and HFY Space Opera Part 1. The Impossible Mission. The distant hum of life support systems aboard Deep Space Station Meridian 7 provided a constant backdrop to Commander Sarah Chen's morning routine. She stood before the observation deck's massive viewport, watching the dance of distant stars while sipping her coffee from a thermal mug that had seen better days. The station sat at the edge of human-controlled space, serving as both diplomatic outpost and early warning system for threats emerging from the galaxy's more chaotic regions. Sarah had commanded the station's tactical operations for 3 years, and in that time, she had seen her share of crises. Pirate raids, territorial disputes, and the occasional first contact situation kept her team busy, but nothing had prepared her for what was about to walk through her office door. The chime of her communication system interrupted her morning contemplation. "Commander Chen to operations," came the voice of Lieutenant Torres from the command center. "We have an urgent diplomatic transmission from the Vorthak Collective. They're requesting immediate audience." Sarah raised an eyebrow. The Vorthak were known throughout this sector as one of the most advanced and self-sufficient species in the local cluster. Their technology surpassed humanity's in most areas, and they rarely sought outside assistance. "Patch them through, Torres, and prep conference room Alpha for a formal diplomatic meeting." Within minutes, Sarah found herself face-to-face with Ambassador Krixtal, a tall, elegant reptilian being whose scales shimmered with an opalescent quality that spoke of genetic enhancement. The ambassador's usually composed demeanor showed cracks of desperation that immediately put Sarah on high alert. "Commander Chen," Krixtal began, his translator rendering his words in precise, formal English. "I come before you not as a representative of the collective, but as a being whose people face extinction. We require assistance that our own technology cannot provide." Sarah leaned forward, setting down her coffee. "Ambassador, the Vorthak Collective has resources that dwarf anything we humans can offer. What could possibly require our specific involvement?" Krixtal's head lowered in what Sarah recognized as a gesture of profound humility among his people. "Our colony world of Zelthara faces annihilation from a cosmic phenomenon our scientists call a quantum storm. It is a cascading collapse of space-time itself, consuming everything in its path. 3 of the most advanced civilizations in our region have attempted to stop it. The Chronari brought their reality-warping technology. The ethereal minds deployed their collective consciousness powers. The Machine Collective sent their most sophisticated artificial intelligence constructs. And, Sarah prompted, though she suspected she already knew the answer, all failed catastrophically. The Chronari fleet was absorbed into the storm. Their reality-warping technology turned against them. The ethereal mind's collective consciousness was shattered, driving thousands of their kind into permanent madness. The Machine Collective's constructs were corrupted, their logic turned to chaos. Krixtal's voice carried the weight of witnessed horror. Each attempt only seemed to feed the storm, making it larger and more destructive. Sarah stood and walked to the viewport, her mind already racing through possibilities. "And you think humans can succeed where these advanced civilizations failed?" "We have studied your species extensively, Commander. Your people possess something unique, an ability to find solutions in chaos, to adapt to impossible circumstances, to succeed through means that appear illogical to other species. Where we see insurmountable problems, humans see puzzles to be solved." Dr. Elena Vasquez, the station's chief xenobiologist, had been quietly observing from the corner of the room. Now she spoke up. "Ambassador, what exactly is the nature of this quantum storm? How does it propagate?" Krixtal activated a holographic display, showing a 3-dimensional representation of the phenomenon. The storm appeared as a writhing mass of purple and black energy, with tendrils reaching out in all directions. It began as a single point, approximately 6 months ago, following an experimental attempt by our scientists to create a controlled quantum rift for faster-than-light communication. The experiment failed, and the rift became self-sustaining and expansive. Sarah studied the display, her tactical mind analyzing the patterns. The other civilizations that attempted to stop it, what was their approach? direct confrontation. The Chronari attempted to collapse the storm using massive gravitational manipulation. The ethereal minds tried to impose order through psychic force. The machine collective deployed logic-based containment protocols. All brute force approaches, Sarah mused. What's the storm's behavior pattern? Does it follow any predictable path? That is precisely the problem, Commander. The storm appears to follow no pattern at all. It moves chaotically, defying all attempts at prediction or modeling. Sarah felt a familiar spark of inspiration, the same feeling she got when faced with seemingly impossible tactical situations. Ambassador, I think you've been approaching this wrong. You're trying to fight chaos with order, but what if the solution is to work with the chaos instead of against it? Captain Marcus Rivera, who had been summoned to the meeting, stepped forward. Commander, are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting? Sarah turned to face her assembled team. I'm suggesting that this might be exactly the kind of problem humans are built to solve. We've made an art form out of turning chaos to our advantage. Every major victory in human military history has involved taking an impossible situation and finding the one solution no one else could see. Dr. Vasquez nodded slowly. Chaos theory. Instead of trying to impose external order on the system, we work with its inherent patterns, find the strange attractors, the butterfly effects that could cascade into the outcome we want. Ambassador Krixtal's scales shifted color, a sign of either hope or disbelief. You would attempt this mission, even knowing that failure means not just your deaths but potentially making the storm even more dangerous? That's exactly why we have to try, Captain Rivera said, his scarred face set with determination. Because if we don't, and that storm keeps growing, it's going to threaten human space eventually. Better to face it now, on our terms, than wait for it to come to us. Sarah felt the weight of command settling on her shoulders. This wasn't just about saving an alien world. This was about proving that humanity belonged among the stars, that their unique perspective on problem-solving had value in a galaxy full of ancient, advanced civilizations. Ambassador, we'll need complete access to all data on the storm, including the failed attempts by the other civilizations. We'll also need a ship capable of reaching Zelthara and surviving long enough in the storm's vicinity to implement whatever solution we develop. The collective will provide anything you require, Krixtal said, his voice carrying new hope. Our finest vessel will be at your disposal, along with any technology or resources you need. No, Sarah said, surprising everyone in the room. We do this with human technology, human methods. The moment we start relying on advanced alien tech, we start thinking like the civilizations that already failed. We need to approach this problem with purely human solutions. Dr. Vasquez was already pulling up specifications on her tablet. We'll need to modify one of our Ranger-class exploration vessels, enhanced sensors, improved shielding, and perhaps some unconventional additions based on what we learn about the storm's behavior. I can have a crew of volunteers ready within 6 hours, Captain Rivera added. Marines and technical specialists who've worked with impossible situations before. Sarah looked out at the stars again, feeling the weight of an entire species, hopes resting on human ingenuity. Ambassador, understand this, we're not promising success. What we're promising is that we'll try something no one else has tried. We'll look at this problem with human eyes and human logic, and we'll either find a solution or die trying. Krixtal performed the formal bow of his people. Commander Chen, that is more than anyone else has offered us. If you can save Zelthara, the Vorthak Collective will be forever in humanity's debt. As the ambassador departed to make arrangements, Sarah gathered her team around the holographic display of the quantum storm. The swirling mass of destructive energy seemed almost alive, reaching out with tendrils that defied conventional physics. All right, people, she said, her voice carrying the confidence that had earned her command of the station. We've got less than 72 hours to figure out how to stop something that's already defeated 3 of the most advanced civilizations in known space. No pressure. Dr. Vasquez was already deep in analysis, her fingers dancing across multiple data streams. The pattern isn't random, she murmured. It looks random, but there's an underlying structure. It's like a jazz improvisation. chaotic on the surface but with deep mathematical harmonies underneath. That's our way in, Sarah realized. We don't fight the music, we learn to dance with it. The next 60 hours would determine not just the fate of Zelthara, but humanity's place in a galaxy that was about to learn what humans could accomplish when faced with the impossible. Against all odds, the modified Ranger-class vessel, Defiant, dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zelthara system, and immediately every sensor on the bridge screamed warnings. The quantum storm had grown substantially since the last Vorthak reconnaissance report, now covering nearly half the system with its writhing tendrils of distorted space-time. Commander Sarah Chen stood on the bridge, watching the impossible sight through the reinforced viewport. The storm wasn't just destroying matter. It was unmaking reality itself, leaving behind regions where the laws of physics seemed negotiable at best. "Jesus Christ," whispered Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison, the ship's engineer. "How the hell are we supposed to work with that?" "Carefully," Sarah replied, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what they faced. Dr. Elena Vasquez was hunched over her modified sensor array, feeding real-time data into the quantum computers they jury-rigged in the cargo bay. "Elena, what are you seeing?" Sarah asked. "It's beautiful," the xenobiologist whispered, then caught herself. "I mean, it's horrifying, but the underlying mathematics are extraordinary. The storm isn't actually chaotic at all. It's following quantum probability cascades, but on a macro scale. It's like watching the universe play dice with reality." Captain Rivera joined them at the sensor station. "In plain English, Doc? The storm is making quantum choices about what happens to space-time, but instead of happening at the subatomic level like normal quantum mechanics, it's happening with entire regions of space. Every few seconds, it decides whether a particular area gets torn apart, folded in on itself, or left alone." Sarah felt that familiar spark of inspiration. So it's not actually destroying everything in its path. It's rolling cosmic dice, and sometimes the dice come up in favor of preservation? Exactly, which means we can influence the dice. Sarah turned to Morrison. "Jake, how's our quantum field generator?" "Rigged and ready, Commander. Fair warning, though. We're basically trying to use a flashlight to influence a forest fire." "Sometimes that's exactly what you need," Sarah said. "Small influences applied at exactly the right moment and place can create massive changes in chaotic systems. It's not about overpowering the storm. It's about nudging it in the right direction." The Defiant began its careful approach toward Zelthara, now visible as a green and blue marble nearly engulfed by the storm's leading edge. The planet's population of 60 million Vorthak had taken shelter in deep underground cities, but their time was running out. "Commander," came the voice of Communications Officer Park from across the bridge, "we're receiving a transmission from the planet's surface." "Put it through." The voice that emerged was clearly Vorthak, but speaking in broken, heavily accented English. "Human vessel, this is Colony Administrator Vexitar. We have been monitoring your approach. Our people speak of you in whispers now. The species that attempts the impossible. Are you truly here to save us?" Sarah picked up the communications handset. "Administrator Vextar, we're here to try. We can't promise success, but we can promise that we'll give everything we have. That is more than we dared hope for. Commander, I must tell you, our deep scanners show the storm will reach our cities within 18 hours. If you are to act, it must be soon." "Understood." Sarah out. She turned to her crew. "You heard the man. We've got 18 hours to save a planet. Elena, what's your recommendation?" Dr. Vasquez pulled up a three-dimensional model of the storm system. "The storm has three main probability nodes, points where its quantum decisions cascade outward. If we can influence even one of those nodes to consistently choose preservation over destruction, it should create a feedback loop that gradually calms the entire system." Morrison studied the display. "The closest node is still inside the storm's active region. We'd have to fly directly into that chaos to reach it." "Then that's what we do," Sarah said simply. "But we don't go in fighting. We go in dancing." The next several hours were spent in frantic preparation. The crew modified their approach systems to work in harmony with the storm's chaotic patterns rather than fighting against them. They programmed their engines to fire in seemingly random bursts that actually matched the storm's underlying quantum rhythms. As they entered the storm's outer edge, reality began to behave strangely around them. The ship's hull flickered between different states of matter. The bridge briefly existed in two locations simultaneously before snapping back to normal. Time stuttered, moving forward and backward in small jumps. "This is insane," Morrison muttered, fighting to keep the ship's system stable. "No," Sarah corrected, watching the chaos swirl around them with fascination rather than fear. "This is jazz." "Elena, are you getting the pattern?" "I think so," the doctor replied, her voice tight with concentration. "The storm is trying to decide what to do with us. Every few seconds, it considers different possibilities, destroying us, ignoring us, transforming us into something else entirely." "Then let's give it a better option," Sarah said. She activated the quantum field generator, but instead of using it to impose order on the chaos, she programmed it to add new possibilities to the storm's quantum decision matrix, possibilities that involved the storm gradually reducing its own destructive power. The effect wasn't immediately visible, but the ship's sensors began detecting subtle changes in the storm's behavior. The chaotic energy patterns started showing, tiny preferences for less destructive outcomes. "It's working," Dr. Vasquez breathed. "The storm is starting to choose preservation more often than destruction, but the effect is spreading slowly." "Too slowly," Captain Rivera said grimly, monitoring the countdown to Zelthara's destruction. "We need to amplify the effect somehow." Sarah was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the swirling chaos. Then she smiled, the kind of smile that had gotten her into trouble throughout her career. "What if we don't try to change the storm's mind? What if we give it a better target?" "Commander," Morrison asked nervously, "the storm feeds on attempts to control it, right? Every time someone tries to impose order, it gets stronger. But what if we offered it something it wants more than chaos?" Dr. Vasquez caught on first. "You want to give it a puzzle. Something complex enough to keep it occupied while the preservation effects spread." "Exactly. Jake, can you route all our computational systems through the quantum field generator? I want to feed the storm the most complex mathematical problem we can create." "That's..." Morrison paused, then grinned. "That's completely insane, which probably means it'll work. Give me 10 minutes. As Morrison worked, Sarah opened a channel to Colony Administrator Vextar. "Administrator, I need you to do something that's going to sound crazy. I need every person on your planet to start thinking about the same mathematical concept simultaneously." "Commander, I do not understand." "The storm is quantum mechanical. It responds to observation and consciousness. If 60 million minds all focus on the same complex problem at the same time, it'll give the storm something more interesting to play with than destroying your planet." There was a long pause. What should we think about?" Sarah smiled. "Pi. Have everyone calculate pi to as many decimal places as they can. The storm will find the infinite complexity irresistible." Across Zelthara, 60 million Vorthak began the strangest homework assignment in galactic history. Meanwhile, the Defiant fed the storm increasingly complex mathematical puzzles through its quantum field generator. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The storm's chaotic tendrils began forming intricate geometric patterns as it tried to solve the puzzles being offered to it. Its destructive advance slowed, then stopped entirely as it became absorbed in mathematical contemplation. "It's working," Dr. Vasquez reported, barely containing her excitement. "The storm is redirecting its energy toward problem solving instead of destruction. The quantum preservation effects are spreading throughout the system." Over the next several hours, they watched as the impossible happened. The quantum storm gradually transformed from a force of pure destruction into something resembling a cosmic computer, its energy patterns forming beautiful mathematical mandalas as it worked through the problems being fed to it. "Commander," Administrator Vextar's voice came over the communication system. "The storm, it is no longer advancing. Our people are emerging from the deep cities. The sky above us shows patterns of incredible beauty. Sarah looked out at what had once been a cosmic disaster, and now resembled the galaxy's largest and most complex work of art. Administrator, I think your people just participated in the universe's first case of quantum homework. The laughter that came over the comm system was distinctly alien, but unmistakably joyful. As the Defiant prepared to depart Zelthara, now safe under its canopy of mathematical light patterns, Dr. Vasquez approached Sarah with a thoughtful expression. Commander, do you realize what we just did? We didn't stop the quantum storm. We taught it to create instead of destroy. I know, Sarah said, watching the beautiful patterns play across Zelthara's sky. Sometimes the best way to deal with chaos isn't to eliminate it. It's to give it a better purpose. The voyage back to Meridian 7 was quiet, each crew member lost in contemplation of what they'd accomplished. When they arrived, they found the station buzzing with activity. Representatives from dozens of species had arrived, all wanting to understand how a handful of humans had succeeded where the galaxy's most advanced civilizations had failed. Ambassador Krixtal was waiting in the docking bay, accompanied by delegations from the Chronari, the Ethereal Minds, and the Machine Collective, the same civilizations that had failed in their attempts to stop the storm. Commander Chen, Krixtal said, his scales shimmering with colors Sarah had never seen before. You have done more than save our world. You have shown the galaxy a new way of thinking about impossible problems. A Chronari representative stepped forward, their crystalline form reflecting the docking bay lights. We came here to understand how you succeeded where we failed. Our analysis suggests you should not have been able to affect the quantum storm at all. Sarah smiled, that same confident expression that had carried her through the mission. That's where you went wrong. You analyzed the problem instead of feeling it. You tried to impose your will instead of working with what was already there. Humans have a saying, if you can't beat them, join them. Sometimes the most powerful force in the universe isn't strength. It's the willingness to dance with chaos instead of fighting it. The Machine Collective's representative, a geometric construct of impossible angles, processed this for several seconds before responding. This approach does not compute according to standard tactical protocols. That's exactly why it worked, Dr. Vasquez interjected. The storm had already adapted to standard protocols. It needed something genuinely unexpected, not advanced technology or overwhelming force, but pure human creativity. As the various alien delegations departed, each carrying new ideas about problem-solving and cooperation, Sarah stood once again at her favorite viewport. The stars looked the same, as they had before the mission, but something fundamental had changed. Humanity had proven itself not through superior firepower or advanced technology, but through their unique ability to find hope and solutions in the most chaotic circumstances. Captain Rivera joined her at the viewport. So, Commander, what impossible mission are we taking on next? Sarah laughed, raising her coffee mug in a mock toast to the stars. In a galaxy this big, Marcus, I'm pretty sure we'll never run out of impossible missions. And that's exactly how I like it. The story of the Terran Vanguard would spread throughout the galaxy, inspiring new approaches to seemingly insurmountable problems. But for Sarah and her crew, it was just another day's work, proving that sometimes being human was exactly the advantage the universe needed.